The Art Center inspires creativity and contributes to
community well-being
through equitable access to
and engagement with visual arts.
We collaborate to offer exhibitions,
learning opportunities, artist development,
and cultural events centered on
art, artists, and art enthusiasts in the greater Corvallis area.
Welcome, everyone. This is Jenny Castle from the Art Center in Corvallis, Oregon. I'm here on TAC Makes a Podcast with Mary Frisbee Johnson, who is the artist in the main gallery currently at the Art Center. Her show, Pacific Waters, opened on June 8th and will be on view until July 22nd. Mary, thank you for joining me today to talk about your work.
Thank you, Jenny.
Your work is a very cohesive collection of indigo drawings of the Pacific waters here off the Pacific coast. Can you talk a little bit about how this project came to be and how you and your process of making this pretty large collection?
Sure. I have lived in the Midwest for a really long time. I was born and raised in Montana. I lived in Coos Bay for 2 years after college and fell in love with the Pacific. And then I got accepted to graduate school in Ohio. So I did never dream that it would take me so long to get back to the Oregon coast. But I taught for 42 years and always in the Midwest, Arizona, places like that. So when I retired in 2017, I moved back to Waldport, Oregon. I had bought a house in 2006 and commuted from Iowa every year with cats and spent the whole time on the water that I could, 3 months of the year. And from this experience, I knew I wanted to retire in Oregon. And we ended up doing that, and I'm able to spend as much time as I want on the water now. So all my work in art for the last 42 years and in teaching has been both 2D and 3D. I've always taught drawing, and I've always taught sculptural classes, mixed media classes, installation classes, and my work has also reflected that. I was really badly injured in 2002, and I couldn't draw my huge drawings anymore. And so I decided to learn metalsmithing. So for all of 2000 to 2017, I was really concentrating on metalsmithing, but drawing all the time. And really, Pacific Waters started as a gift for my sister because she has a big, beautiful house and needed a great big drawing. I had a roll of huge Arches watercolor paper that was super, super heavy. And I started drawing with indigo ink on it, and I just fell in love with the process. So I began adding to my collection of water photographs that I've been taking for years, and just started this whole process. And now there's like 55 or 60 of these drawings on watercolor paper.
Yeah, the collection seems expansive in the gallery, and it's only a fraction of the work that you've made with this technique.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. If hopefully the people who are listening either have gone to see the show or will have a chance to see the show, but it is amazing the variations that are present from drawing to drawing, and yet how similar they all are, how cohesive it all feels, like the energies feel like they're meant to be seen together, just like the ocean changes during the day when you look at it.
Yeah.
So the Art Center has an exhibition committee that reviews applications to show in our galleries, and they were struck by your work, Elsie Bay, and that's why you were invited to show the work. But that was an older work, correct? You had a different approach and a different style at that time.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how that piece was made, and then how and why your work has shifted since then?
That piece was made for the faculty show at my university, and I had earmarked a particular space, which was a 12-foot by 16-foot freestanding wall. And I knew I wanted to do huge drawings that would hang all the way down from the top of the wall. And so I began printing out more or less at random my photographs of the surface of Alsea Bay. And then I started cutting them up and I started gluing them together into long strips until they made some kind of visual sense to me in the way the water moved and the marks that were made. And so it ended up being maybe this big. And then I cut the paper in scale and I worked outside because they were such a mess. I had great big brushes and great big buckets of ink. And I was using Sumi ink and India ink. And it just made an enormous mess. And it was really, really fun to do that. I had to finish the last one in the drawing studio at school after school started. And then I kind of got them all flattened and then hung them in the gallery in the configuration you see now. So that was my first kind of foray into mark making with big brushes and ink that started to explore the movement and the shape of the water. But I really didn't do any more. I did a series the next year called 90 Drawings, 90 Days, 90 Drawings. And I did a drawing every day of the water. No, I just took photos wherever I went, just in the process of living here, and then would do a drawing that night, and then take photos the next day and do a drawing that night till I had 90 of them. And they were long, skinny little panoramics like this. And then they went up in a big installation piece that the students liked. And those were full color pastel drawings.
Wow.
So much, much different because it was really exploring the color of the water with the light on it and changing. Then when I started the indigo drawings, I thought, nope, I just want them all monochrome because I'm enamored with that color. So Alsea Bay was the beginning of it and looks very different now than the rest of the show, but I think that it's apropos to see where it started.
Can you talk a little bit about the blue ink that you use for people out there who are maybe thinking about trying different types of materials? I know that you found a very unique paper to paint with white paint on that speaks to the blue indigo ink that you use in your other drawings. I mean, there's something so magical about blue when you like a long history of, references to blue in art and literature. And so I will say more than one person has come into the gallery while I've been there and walked in and go, oh, I feel cooler. Like they literally feel like we are an air conditioned building, but they're having an experience walking in from outside and physically feeling cooler because they're surrounded by so much blue. Yes. So can you speak a little bit to do you have a connection to that color? Is there a reason why you've, dug so deeply into the series with that single color?
I think it's because on a sunny day, which is unusual in Oregon, in summer, when the wind's up, the sea is a really dark blue with white caps. And I love those days. I love to go look at the water on those days. And so I just ordered several different brands of indigo, not knowing if it was going to be the right color. I also got ultramarine and some other colors, but the indigo immediately was just it. It was so rich. I don't think my inks are actually indigo. I think they're the synthetic indigo. I'm using Daler Rowney acrylic inks because they're permanent and archival. And so that's kind of what I settled on. The first few drawings, the work wasn't permanent, and so whatever I'd painted would come up when I put another layer over it. And that was interesting, but that wasn't what I was after. And so once I tried the permanent Daler Rowney, which is an English brand, that indigo was just, just really, really suited me. And I decided that I had thought so carefully about 90 drawings of different colored waters that I decided to just concentrate on blue, that indigo that I loved, and try to deal with value, the lights and darks and the highlights and the shadows of the water.
And to that point, there is a large range of value in all of your drawings. I mean, there's one in particular where, like, every time I'm walking out of the building, it's right in front of me, and it literally feels like when sunlight hits water and it kind of blinds you and kind of overexposes, even like your eyes when you look at it. I mean, you can feel those you can feel the light in a number of them. And because you're working, almost monochromatically, you can see all the shapes, which are really interesting, like as you get closer. So, I mean, are you kind of hyper managing the marks that you're making in the work and then stepping back and experiencing it? Are you really interested in each of those individual shapes that end up being drawn?
We kind of two questions. First, that kind of hyper light probably happens in Photoshop. I'm terrible at Photoshop. I take my photos and I just play with them until I'm happy with the value range. And they're imperfect photos, they're not great. They're just shot with my iPhone. But I don't care, because what I'm looking for is the composition and the play of light and dark. So I might heighten what I've got in my camera from what I actually saw that day. I should say that. Yeah, the shapes of the marks are super important. I learned that really fast, that just working really expressionistically and kind of half-assing my way through the photo, I didn't like the drawings at all. They didn't feel like a moment in time. They didn't feel like I'd stopped that motion. And I learned that I was going to have to be more careful about the shapes of the lights and darks. Or oddly enough, it felt looser and weirder and not at all giving that moment in time feeling. So yeah, I pay a lot of attention to that. The only time I don't is like if I was putting down a great big wash of color in the background, in which case I would just draw pencil lines that sort of indicated lights and darks, and then a great big brush and a big container of ink and just slop it on in a very expressionistic way. And then after it was all dried, then there's a drawing on top.
Then
that's careful. Yeah. Did that answer?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's something that I've noticed in the drawings, and I think a lot of other people notice, is that it's a very different experience as you're close at it, like to it. And then you step away, and then there's this experience that you have that
it focuses.
Yeah. And so to be able to, for a drawing to be that interesting, that close up, I think there has to be some very meticulous choices that are happening.
Do you think they're interesting close up?
Yeah, it's just a completely different experience, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
they're abstract up close. You just shapes.
They're abstract, and I think you get a window into your process of making them, and then you step back and you can just appreciate the creation as a whole. And I think that that's a really dynamic way to experience artwork in person, because it's not something you can do online and the same way. So I
don't get why it works. I still don't understand it. I didn't understand it when I studied the Impressionists, whose work does that. And I don't really understand it. I'll always take one look back at a wall that I hang the current drawing on as I'm leaving to go make dinner. And it's focused. And I went, how did that happen? Because I've been working on it up close all day, and I'm really not sure how that works.
Maybe that curiosity is what keeps you making all this work.
So, yeah.
You're like, eventually I'll figure it out. better make another Pacific Waters drawing. The experience in the gallery is wonderful. Like I said, you walk in, you have this giant work in front of you that feels very experiential, and then people are feeling a sense of coolness, and they get to walk around and experience this really cohesive body of work, which is all wonderful. But then you also agreed to let OSU students make compositions about your work, and we've added that into the gallery, which, one, thank you for being open to that collaboration. I think it was a fun experience for the students, I've heard, and I'm happy with the result as a curator in the space. Do you want to talk a little bit about that experience and maybe if the experience has helped you reflect on your work any differently than you had in the past?
Well, first, thanks to you and Dana Reasoner for putting this project together, and to the students, of course, because when you brought it up, I was so delighted because it never would have occurred to me to do that. And I thought, what a cool adjunct project to bring in to this. And way to go, Jenny, for being really creative in your thinking about that, and to Dr. Reasoner for her work with the students. I think I wasn't really a part of that except separated. It wasn't like they watched me work in the studio or anything. It was just they saw the work, and I was over here talking about it. And so I feel like, all credit to you all besides me, because I really didn't have that much except to be the base image. Talking to students was really wonderful because they enlightened the work for me, much like artists talk about their work. Every student that kind of told me their story about how they arrived at it was completely new to me. I had no idea how they went about designing these pieces. And so it must have been sort of like them wondering how I'd made my drawings. I was wondering how they'd made theirs. And I thought they were so interesting the way they thought about visual water and put it into sand.
Were you able to listen to any of the works?
Oh, yeah. I listened to all of them several times.
Yeah. There's such a variation across there's so many different emotions that I feel like are captured. And
then you get to Dr. Reasoner's, which is very avant-garde and so interesting to me that it's titled Driftwood, and you get these sort of thuds and odd sounds. And she did not go for the rhythmic water like a brook. It was kind of caught the randomness of stuff in the water.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the experience, because the students all gave great feedback and really enjoyed. A lot of them were composing, I think, for the first time. And I think
they did great.
I doubt that any of them had composed for a gallery show before, even if they had made compositions before. So,
Did they interact with the public? Did they get any feedback from viewers?
So, people can view it on, or technically they can view it on YouTube, listen to YouTube right now. And we've had some comments in the gallery. And there were a number of the students at the reception. So I hope that they received feedback at that time.
Have you received feedback from viewers that they enjoyed listening to them?
Yeah, it's funny because I think the experience in the gallery was different than most people had before. So we're trying, it's new in a lot of ways. I think we're implementing technology differently than the Art Center has done in the past. So people are kind of learning about the QR code and figuring out how that works. And a few people discovered we have a YouTube channel. So I guess that was positive.
Yeah, very positive.
There's all these layers, right? That by adding complexity to the show and asking people to interact with it rather than passively walk through, I think is helping the Art Center potentially do more in the future. So, and get people to engage with work differently, like this interview. This will be on our YouTube channel. It'll be on Spotify. It'll be available through a QR code in the gallery. I mean, all of those things. It just kind of gives viewers an opportunity to dive deeper into the art they're experiencing. So,
it's a great policy. Good for you.
Well, thank you. We just want to serve the community the best we can, and try out what works. This was an experiment on my end too. When I said thank you for being on board, I am very genuine because I had no clue how it was going to turn out either. Right? We just kind of, believed and just let it unfold, and I think it went well.
Well, it's a university upper level class. How bad could it have been, right?
And it's ephemeral, right? The show comes down and the music goes silent and then you move on, right? Yeah. So if it didn't work out perfectly, we'll just do it again next time and learn something from it. But the exhibition has been very well received by the Corvallis community, and the experimentation that we did, I think, has deepened that experience. And so, yes, well done to you. All right, Mary. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me today. And,
absolutely. Thank you.
So Mary Frisbee Johnson's exhibition, Pacific Waters, is on view through July 22nd. And the Art Center is open Tuesday through Saturday, 12 to 5 p.m. Thank you for listening to TAC Makes. This is a new creative project at the Art Center, and I hope you enjoy our learning curve as much as we do. You can find more episodes on YouTube and Spotify and on our website, theartscenter.net. That's arts with an S.